Hey, I'm going to show you how to write one of your body paragraphs for the uses of narrative essay or the narrative and history essay. I'm going to show you an example from a text that you cannot write about and you have not read. It's from a very famous book called Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass. So I'm going to show you an excerpt here in a second once it pops up. I'm not going to read this to you. I'll post the excerpt on Classroom, so if you want to take a look at it, if you feel like you're confused about what it's talking about. But basically, this man, Frederick Douglass, this was written back in the day, back in the 1800s, he grew up a slave. He was living in slavery. He had grown up as a slave, and he found his own freedom. So in this excerpt, he's describing what it was like being a slave, being abused as much as he was, and then finding freedom later. So when I read that, I annotated, obviously. And when I read, I found that word choice was really strong in this narrative. So I circled words like you're seeing here: bitterest dregs of slavery, work, 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 tamed, breaking me, brute. And I jotted down next to that word choice. And I also jotted that it shows the humanity of his treatment. So see, I'm making a connection to how does it help me to understand this event? How does it help me understand slavery? Right? And then later in this narrative, I underlined this part and I labeled that perspective. This is Master Thomas ridiculed the idea that there was any danger of Mr. Cowley's killing me and said that he knew Mr. Covey and that he was a good man and he could not think of taking me from him, that if he should do so, he would lose a whole year's wages. That's perspective that shows what it's like for someone who's living in slavery to deal with the person who owns them and the frustration that he's feeling at this treatment. And when you go to complain about being beaten and mistreated, there's nothing that they can do for you. And they really treat you like an animal, send you back. So I wrote perspective and shows how it feels to be unfree. And then later I noticed word choice toward the end. He's describing being free this time. He uses words like glorious, resurrection, tomb of slavery, cowardice departed, and bold defiance. I jotted down in the margin, word choice shows his rebirth. When I look back at my annotations, I think I'm ready now to make a claim about this. And since I have a little bit more with word choice right now, I can make another claim about perspective. If I wrote my essay, I can make a paragraph about perspective and find some more. But I'm going to do my first paragraph on word choice. So I'm going to write my claim, and that's that the author uses word choice to show the inhumanity of slavery and the power of being free. And now I'm ready to write my paragraph. So when I start my paragraph, this is what I wrote. Okay, and this is an example of a paragraph you might put as your body paragraph in your essay. Frederick Douglass, the author of Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, uses word choice to show the inhumanity of slavery and the power of being free. Douglass uses words like bitterest dregs, tamed, breaking me, and brute to show that he was treated like an animal because they are words that are usually used to describe horses or some other work animals, not men. A non-narrative article like the Newsella article might describe the inhumanity of slavery, but it does not use such powerful words as Douglass uses. Douglass later uses words like glorious and resurrection, deported, and bold defiance to describe his longing to be free. These words show that the power of freedom for people who were once living in chains. Douglass does all this through word choice. So a couple things that I did there. One, you notice that I took that original claim that I had a draft of that claim, and I included the title and author, and I made that into a positive phrase. That's a great place to put in a positive phrase. Really, the beginning of every one of your paragraphs can have a positive phrase in it. You're going to highlight your best one, but that's how I put together my positive phrase. Then I also pulled several words when citing word choice. Now, of course, I highlighted here so you could see it quickly. Don't highlight your examples in your essay. But I pulled about 4 words per example, and that's what I'm looking for you. Don't think that you can just give me one piece of word choice and that proves it. You need several to prove your point. The other thing I'm going to point out here is that I linked the article from Newsella. I made a comparison to that. Actually, yeah, I put it here. So I used compared to the effect to a non-narrative article that I read. You read a lot of non-narrative articles from Newsella or from the Encyclopedia. I can refer to those. I linked it there too. I want you to link it too. You don't have to make that kind of comparison, but I wanted to show that to you because that can drive your point home. That can help you with your interpretation a little bit. And finally, I have a sentence that I can highlight there. I use the but sentence, and I also have a so sentence. Your so sentence it can go in your interpretation. That's always a good place to put it. That's why we've been practicing with our group discussions. This happened, so what? All right? And that is how you write a paragraph. So you can use that as an example for what I'm looking for in your own essay. Thanks. It's going to take me a minute to turn this off.